Welcome back to Arise Entertainment 360. Now, as we know, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. So whether you're in love, looking for love, or couldn't care less about love,
right?
We've got some help for you.
That's right. Joining us with tips on loving in the 21st century is relationship expert Dr. Danielle Forshee. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
So we're talking love, love, love.
We are.
Is it? Is it? Where's mine?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I don't have any.
I love you.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Now, you are a doctor of psychology as well as a licensed therapist, and no one is more qualified to talk about love than you. So, what would you say in the lead up to Valentine's Day we should be doing or looking to do if we're looking for love?
Well, if you're looking for love, it's important to know what you're looking for in general. Like, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for a hookup, or are you actually looking for a relationship? Because that's going to really dictate how you proceed.
Okay,
Very true.
For those that are looking for relationships, it seems harder these days for people to find. I know so many single people, and they're like, I just can't find a good man or a good woman. What's the problem? What's going on? Is it themselves? Is it should they look in the mirror? Is it
well, you know, sometimes yes, sometimes no. So we all need a good dose of self-actualization, which is when we take the mirror and we kind of look at ourselves to see, you know, is it us more or less that's contributing to the major issue here? But really, I think it's a big problem in socialization, because really we have a lot of people that now are meeting online, which is very difficult to really get to know somebody because it's text messaging and it's really a lack of being able to see their facial expressions and hear the tone of their voice. There's a lot about the way in which we speak, the tone of our voice, our body language, that's really, really effective in really good communication. But also with the online dating, there's a lot of hyper stimulation and hyper attention going on. So, you know, you get one person you see, and then you find them, and then you swipe, and then you swipe, and then like it's this total overstimulation. There's always something else or somebody else better. So it's this mindset that we're trained to be in at this point. It's different than it was when we're meeting people organically. So it's much more complicated now.
So you go with a more old-fashioned meetup then?
That's the better way.
It's the best way.
That's the better way.
Face, right?
Yeah, and you actually get to know the person as opposed to just, you know, looking at a picture and being like, wait.
A picture from 20 years ago.
Right? I feel like also with these dating apps and online dating, etc., like you said, it's so instant and you're literally just basing it upon what they look like, their appearance. So if their personality turns out to be awful, then you're going to dump them, right?
Right, and when you first get to know somebody, we're all putting our best foot forward, right? So we really don't know somebody right away until we meet them and get to know their nuances and stuff like that. So it's much more complicated.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So let's say you're in a relationship, you've been dating, and then you start to have some problems, okay? So what are some of the common problems you see with your clients?
Well, when you first start dating somebody, everything's all like perfect, and you're excited, and you have these butterflies, and you can't wait to see them, and all you're right, and there's a lot of truth to that. It's actually a whole neurochemistry that goes on in our brain when it comes to those feelings that we get. So you know, people say I have butterflies in my stomach, and I can't wait to see this person. So there's a lot of happy chemicals that are just being produced and secreted in our brain, and that makes us have those reactions and those responses, and it causes our brain to hyper focus only on that one person, almost like you're obsessed with them, right?
Oh, I know about that.
So, and this only can last for so long. It does not last more than like, I don't know, probably like 8 to 12 months. And then that's when people start to really kind of get to settle in, and then you get to know the person a little bit better. But those excitement feelings go away, and some people mistaken that for not being in love, or maybe they're bored. But that might not necessarily be true, because technically your brain can't handle all that overstimulation. Your body can't, because it would really drive you nuts, actually, to be that distracted all the time and that excitable all the time.
That's so interesting. You know, I actually read a quote. I want to attribute it to Buddha, but I could be wrong. And it said that when you meet someone and, you know, you feel those butterflies in your tummy, etc., that's not the one for you. That when you meet someone who makes you feel calm and at home, that's the person you should be with.
That's a
Any
good
truth to
point.
that statement?
I can't respond to that. I can only speak to what I know about the chemistry of people. So,
Okay, so back to chemistry
point
then.
then.
Let's talk about, let's talk about when you fight with the person that you're in love with. If you get into an argument and say mean and nasty things to them, does that mean that you've fallen out of love with them?
that does not mean that at all. So we all have emotional triggers, right? So there are certain ways that we communicate in relationships that could by accident trigger the other person. Maybe they're passive aggressive and that's just how they deal with conflict. Right. And the other person who's on the recipient end of that, they get triggered by that because of some life experience or what it means to them. And so when that person brain gets aroused, like they get emotionally distressed, they're angry, they start to feel emotional about it, what's happening is their brain is kind of like putting them to this place of like fight or flight. And so what happens at that point is that people are unable to actually say the right thing and behave in the manner that they normally would. So you know how like sometimes we're like, oh, you're totally crazy and I know you're crazy, look how you're behaving, right? So they're actually behaving that way because their brain is secreting all of these stress hormones that are rendering a certain part of their brain totally vulnerable to not being able to see things clearly. So it's called a frontal cortex. And so that part of the brain has to do with our ability to control impulses and our ability to have good judgment and our ability to make good decisions.
So how can you calm down that frontal cortex so it's like, okay, stop, stop, okay.
Right, because we find ourselves getting really crazed when we're in that moment and we're like, we can't even control ourselves down, right? So I usually tell my clients who come in with this problem, because a lot of people come in for this, because they're fighting like cats and dogs and they think that their relationship is totally over, or they think their spouse is totally insane. So what I tell people to do is, there's a lot of research on anger, and with this research it suggests that people typically feel this kind of anger for about 30 minutes or so. Some people a little bit more, a little bit less. So when you start to feel yourself getting really like aroused, like your heart's starting to race and you're starting to kind of like feel the heartbeat in your ear, or you're starting to feel hot or anything like that, that's your cue.
Feel those cuss words coming out.
Right. That's really your cue to stop and to know that those hormones are starting to take over that part of your brain that control what you do, what you say. So that's a preventative action. So you got to notice what's happening to your body, and then you have to like have a word, like a code word. I tell people, whatever's meaningful in your relationship, nothing offensive.
Imagine the code word is the cuss word.
Right.
This is my way to get back at it.
Right. Or what about just time out?
Yeah.
Just like time out.
Right.
Let's take a break
Yes.
and then come back and argue.
Yes,
right?
and then you go your separate ways.
Okay.
And then you do a relaxation strategy or a coping strategy. You talk about it, you write, you do some breathing, whatever the case may be, listen to meditation. And then you have an understanding about when you're going to come back together to repair it. Repairing means you actually have to talk about it. So most people don't do the repair part. It's very essential for longevity of relationships.
So people always talk about talking, communication. It's so important in a relationship, but how do you do it? And
particularly when you're angry and don't want to speak to that person at that moment in time.
Right. Well, you shouldn't be speaking to that person if you're angry, because you're going to say things that you don't mean. You're going to behave in ways that are not going to make you look good, or have that person have a good memory of you when you get into a situation where you're mad. You don't want people to start seeing you as this angry person and then they don't want to approach you for repair afterward. So you need to really prevent it. But when you come back, it's really important to actually talk about, you have to sit down and then you have to talk about how each of you felt about the situation. So you kind of want to like go over the situation, what happened, what got you to the place that got you upset, angry, disappointed, embarrassed, or whatever the case may be. And then you talk to each other about what it is that you need, and then you end from there on a good note. Now remember, everyone has different perceptions, so my reality may not be my partner's reality about what happened. And part of that has to do with the fact that those chemicals really get in our way of having a good memory with what went on because you're so mad.
Understandably so. Okay. I feel like I've learned a lot.
I know, right? I was like, okay, make sure we address the issue, how I felt about it, how I'm going to repair it.
So let's talk about, because we did mention it's the lead up to Valentine's Day, and you know, certain people, maybe me, are looking for Valentine's night ideas. What sort of things can we get up to?
So it depends on what stage of your relationship you're in. So if you're in a stage of a relationship where you've been in the relationship for a while, you have longevity, maybe you have kids, or you've been married for a while, a lot of that excitement and exhilaration kind of gets worn off. And there's a lot of research to suggest that we really need this like novelty, excitement, or surprises to kind of keep that alive in the relationship. So what I would suggest for people that are in a long-term relationship that want to do something for Valentine's Day, do something different and out of the norm. Do something that's more novel and exciting, that can generate a relation, like more of a meaningful connection between the both of you, that makes them know that you've thought about them and that you've done something outside of the box. You don't want to stay in the same zone that you do every day.
So no dinner and a movie type stuff. Just
no.
Go beyond that.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't want to play the script of our own lives that we do every day. Get up, you know, whatever it is that we do, we want to change that up to create that excitement. We want to stimulate more happy chemicals in our brain to make them excited.
I like that. Good ideas.
I feel like you've taken more from this than me.
I know.
Travis married.
I gotta get ready.
So he's actually planning Valentine's Day.
Yes.
I'm single, unwilling to mingle. So hey,
there you go.
Valentine's Day for one.
We're gonna work it out. We're gonna work it out. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Really
Dr.
appreciate
Danielle.
that. Now, if we have other, are you on social media? If we have other questions, we can hit you
Yes.
up. What's your Twitter,
Yes.
Instagram? Where can we find you?
It's at Dr. Forshee.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right. Happy almost Valentine's Day to you. Come right back. We have more treats for you.
We do.